And for the first time, the Swans are onward to victory.
Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club.
So to all you loyal Swans out there who just can't get enough of the red and the white,
fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods.
G'day there, Cygnets and Swanlings. Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods, the premier podcast of your Sydney Swans AFLW. The Sydney crew are joined by our axe-wielding superfan from Finland, but I am Chris and this is Jen.
That's right, you lovely, lucky, loyal Swans fan. Welcome back to the podcast and welcome back, Steve-O. But remember, if you enjoy what you hear, make sure to give us a like and a follow. Today we're wrapping up this week's game against the Brisbane Lions, so let's kick things off with a quick game recap. Over to you, Steve-O.
Yeah, thanks Chris, thanks Jen. Yep, I'm back this week. Big thanks to both of you for getting it done so well last week. I've been in the east of Finland, I've been in the west of Finland, now I'm kind of back in the middle. So this football game was not the best day for the Swans. Last Sunday...
I was going to say there was murders on both sides of Finland, as well as over there in Ipswich. So.
You were bold behind my back, and you're just as bold to my face. Anyway, there was a football game which we probably don't want to remember, honestly. But it was on Sunday. It was up in Brisbane, or down in Brisbane if you're located north of Brisbane. And our Swannies, they got done by 68 points in the end. Final score 11-12, 78-1 for 10. Unfortunately, that was the game.
A massive blowout. I guess if I were to take anything good that came out of the game, the talking point that we have spoken about for a lot of the year is the consistency of scoring. And we did manage to put scoring shots in every single one of the quarters. Unfortunately, that's just about where the fun kind of stopped. So, Jen, your first impressions of the game, what did you think?
Yeah, I think we all knew we were likely to have a loss in this game, but I was remaining hopeful that it was going to be a lesser margin than it was. And, they did hold them for a fair bit. They obviously started really well. We got the first score on the board and it was pretty even in that first quarter. So I was like, oh, here we go. And then the girls did manage to stem the flow a little bit in the third, but damage was done in that second. And then that fourth quarter, Lions just too good around the park. They were just stronger, fitter, faster. They just seemed more composed with the ball. And, where our handballs missed, the Lions didn't miss that. And they were just, their handball passages across the park, they were very impressive. It was unfortunate for us and got them into their fourth spot, which they want for the home games for the finals or top four.
Steve, your mental state after another Brisbane big loss. Talk to us.
Oh, mate, I'm shattered again. Look, I hope we never play Brisbane in any format of football ever again. We got done by 55 last year, 68 this year, the men's grand final, which we won't talk about. And look, like Jen, I didn't expect to win, but I thought we might not get thrashed. And we started really well, but then, I think we poked the old Brisbane bear, and then they played some very, very good football. And I was talking to Grant, actually. Grant, my good mate from our footy team, who's our Brisbane correspondent here in Finland. He was supposed to join us today. Actually, we got called away at the last minute. Unfortunately, he couldn't hop on the podcast. But and I was joking with him on Saturday. We had an event for our football team, and I was saying, look, it'd be nice if we could keep the combined margin for the men's grand final in this game under 100. And I thought we might be a shot the way we started, but it blew out. And in the end, the women won by even more than the men. So that was it. That was the day.
That was the day. It was not what we wanted to take away from it. As Jen said, we started off really strong, kept in touch with them against a pretty quality outfit, Jen. Like, they are the reigning premiers for a reason, and they're taking a good hard tilt to it again. So you got to take what you got to take, right? They're a good, strong team.
Yeah, they're just so strong across the park. I don't know if you guys saw at one moment, I think it was in the third, where TK and Alan and Kathy Spark all had this sort of Bosch on the wing, and not many people make TK stay down on the ground, and she took a while getting up, and then it zoomed in on Kathy Spark for a while, and I was just like, oh my God. She was just so impressive. I was like, if you were going to do an anatomy exam, just look at that girl. Like, the delineation of all her muscle groups. I was envious, jealous, scared, excited. I was like, oh my God, I would never want to come up against her as an opposition player. But, it was just across the park.
As a football player and as a physio, you were just like, this is epic. Like.
Yeah, I was like, wow. And that's all that came to my head. I just panned to her and I was just like, oh my God, what a specimen. Both physically and as a football game. But I think that was almost just it was the whole Lions team. It was just across the park. They just have so many star players across the park. Like Conway, both the Spark girls, their ruck, Dwyer, the list went on, Postlethwaite, and when it's happening across the park, it's so hard to stop. They just knew where each other were. They were running in pairs or they were running in waves, and once they got that overlap handball going, it's just even harder to stop. And even though our girls fought, it just... I think when you're relying on just a few compared to a whole 16, the 16 are going to win out every time, and they showed that on the day. And unfortunately in that fourth quarter, they just ran away with it. Those 3 really quick goals in like the first 5 minutes. I was like, oh damn, we were kind of still maybe just in there a little bit, help our percentage a bit, and then that happened. I was like, oh damn it, God, poor girls.
Yeah. They weren't scared of the contest, I know. Like not scared, maybe that's the wrong term, but Brisbane were taking on the pressure. They were absorbing the pressure really well. They were using the ball really well. They were handballing chains across the board. They weren't fussed. And although the girls, I felt, did a really good job of putting the pressure down for a good half of the game, they just couldn't sustain it. And they kind of let Brisbane take away from it. But as you said there, Jen, a few really notables. But it requires a team effort to keep someone that quality of team down. Steve-O, what did you see, mate?
And like Jen talks about them being so strong across the ground. If you look at the top 10 disposal winners on the field, Laura Gardner was first, and then the next 5 were all Brisbane players, and then Ella Heads and the next 2 were Brisbane players. So 8 of the top 10 winning the footy on the ground. So they share it around a lot. They don't rely on a couple of players to do all the damage. And they really absorbed that pressure in that first quarter, especially the Swans were elite with their pressure. Scott Gowans was talking at 3/4 time. You could hear him on the telecast. They had him mic'd up. And at 3/4 time, at quarter time. And at quarter time, the Swans' pressure was 2.3, which is huge. That's a massive pressure rating. And the Lions really, really sucked it in. They absorbed it. And then they just went pop, pop at the end. They just got a couple of quick ones. And then they kicked, the next 9 goals of the game, something like that. Just such an impressive footy side to watch. And one thing Grant was saying, actually, since he's not here, I can chuck a couple of his points in. He said that he'd been expecting a pretty strong response from Brisbane because they got done by Geelong last week, and not really expecting it. This is a team that's fighting for top 4. This is a team that's fighting for the McClellan Trophy, which is the combined overall between the women's and the men's comps. And it looks like Hawthorn's going to win that now, and that's worth $1 million, so it's no small trophy, and the players get a cut of that too. So this was a team with a lot to play for, and they dropped a game last week, and then they came out this week just. They brutalised us after quarter time, really.
Yeah, they really just, as you said, absorbed it. They were able to read when a player was coming at them, but still just managed to get a handball away or a kick away. And I think that big difference between them was their handball had purchase on it, and it was often to the advantage of one of their teammates or to the voice of a teammate. You could tell that they just knew exactly where that player was going to be, whereas I think some of our handballs... Yeah, not enough purchase. I mean, even the commentators were talking about some of our kicks were really poked, especially when we were kicking into the wind. You've got to get a bit of leg behind that to get some distance. And we were probably maybe trying to be a bit too cute with some of those poke kicks when it was like, we're behind, get it moving, get it forward. And Brisbane took advantage of that and really took advantage when they had the wind as well. They would just bang it. A few times it went out the back and then it becomes a foot race. And unfortunately, they were often bigger and just some of them, the burst of speed from 0 to 100 was pretty impressive. I think Dwyer several times just burst out of packs and we just weren't able to get to the outside, and they seemed to get that out a lot easier than we did. So.
Yeah. I mean, touching on your point there, Jen, as well, like the way that they were able to use the ball with under pressure still. I'm just having a quick look at the stats, and you're looking at like the highest contested possession winners of each team. I mean, Laura Gardner with 11 contested possessions, but hitting at 44%. Disposal efficiency pretty low. Whereas you look at theirs, say the 12th contested possessions for Dawes at 72%, 73%. Like significantly better, and also getting plenty of touch on the ball in the dirty areas, but still just being able to be super clean. Like they are class. They are genuine class.
Yeah. If you want to do the maths, Steve, though, I think later on in the stats we're going to talk about it. But I know that there was like a moment, the disposals, they had 307 disposals and we only had 216 disposals. So, that is 33% more basically of the ball than we had. So if you wanted to do that, every minute that we had it, they had it for a minute 33. And it's just like, well, how do you beat a team that has 33% more time with the ball in their hands? And then, as you say, Chris, that much higher disposal efficiency. It's just they rattled us. It's whether it's real pressure or perceived pressure. They they're third on the ladder for a reason now. So
yeah, and like cleaner footy, like they're getting the ball, like you said, a third more than us. But then when they had it, they had time with it because they had options. They knew where their players were going to be. And a lot of the time, okay, we had the footy, but it was quite sort of rushed, panicky. And that, like Laura Gardner is at the top of our disposal chart, but she got 44% efficiency on you, like Chris said. It's a totally different use of the football, even if we're getting it.
And that's nothing, I think we'd all agree, that's not a knock on Gardner at all, that she's getting her hands on the footy in the dirty places. That's just not being able to combine with people, not having enough of the girls around her to make the most of it as well, and to be as clean next to her to nullify some of her damage, of course. So. And
they're in her face too. Like she gets it and she's got, right at her. So it's quite hard to get a beautiful, clean flick out of a pack or whatever when you've got people in your face.
Yeah. One good notable, though, was Will really strong in the clearances compared to the Lions. We were +6 in the clearances, 29 to 23, with a pretty good job done there by the ruck and by quite a few of the girls getting a fair few clearances. It looked like we were sharing that responsibility around the ground, especially some of those backs and Ella Heads and Tarrant. And they did a really good job, Mitchell. So there are some shining lights there that in some pockets of the game that we really outperformed ourselves, I feel.
Yeah, 100% agree. And then especially with Davies going down at the end of the second, for then Smith to also step up and take some time into the ruck position, whether she went up for some of the contest or stayed down as a fourth. I thought she actually really stood up in the game. Obviously got our first goal, got our one goal. But I actually was very impressed with her the last couple of weeks. I thought there was a few skills she needed to go away and work on, and I thought in this game she really did. She was one of the few who really stood up, particularly in that first half. Was everywhere around the park, and then, as I said, jumped into that ruck role. Lexi Hamilton, I mean, pretty peeved off with the umpire, a bit of hogwash there. She did these two massive tackles, and neither of them were paid. I mean, we could go... There were so many calls. Oh my God,
that was so clearly a tackle.
They were awesome tackles too. They were bang.
Okay, can we just bring it up now? The umpire, I was really shocked at the quality of umpiring. It really did not make a fun game to watch, I mean, amongst other things. But some of those, that was clearly a tackle. Just ripped off the ball. Some of the ones that they called, dangerous tackles, like the sling ones, weren't really there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally think umpiring this year has gone a fair bit south compared to last year. I don't know whether they're putting in more trainees or more people getting to have a crack at it, but not the same. Yeah,
I thought absolutely the amount of little notes I've written down as I was watching the game, there are so many dot points just being like, BS, I've heard that was a tackle, that was not holding the ball, or we'd get done to give them a free saying we were holding onto their player, and then 2 seconds there, it happens to us and there's no whistle.
Call it. Yeah.
Ella Heads gets that clearly high call, and it was the downfield umpire that actually calls it. We're like, come on, guys. Come on. Anyway, come back to the good stuff.
It wasn't the most fun one to watch on a couple of different ways, but hey, we got to take it on footy. Steve-O, any notable stats that you wanted to bring up? Any mathematics that you want us to fling at you? Well,
I don't have any maths today. I think Jen's already put in a good performance on the maths, but or maybe later actually. Maybe when we talk about the ladder, we can do some more maths. One thing I was interested in, I'm not sure if it came through on the feed that you guys had, or what, the one that I get on the international AFL streaming app, but they had a bit at the start of and I mentioned it before with Gowans talking about the pressure stat. And in the quarter time huddle, Gowans is up there with his whiteboard and he talked about 4 key stats that he wanted them to focus on, and he was reassessing how they'd gone in that first quarter. And the 4 stats that he brought up were tackles, contested possessions, uncontested marks, and pressure. And he was really happy because they were doing very well in all of those stats and leading in 3 of them at least. He mentioned the contested possessions, uncontested marks, and tackles. They were up, I think he said. And then the pressure, they were 2.3 on pressure, which is a massive pressure score. So that was the first quarter, but then we see it drop off. So in the end, it turned out that we still won the tackles, 71-60, which is really good. That's good tackle pressure. But then the contested possessions, we ended up going down by about 15. No, that's my maths wrong. 14 plus 9, 23, sorry. We went down by 23. And then we went down by 22 in uncontested marks in the end, having been very good in the first quarter. The pressure stat we don't have for full time because we don't have access to that stat through the free AFL stuff. But it was 2.3 to start with. But what I find interesting about those 4 stats is that they're all ones that you can relate to work rate. So you're tackling, your contested possessions, uncontested marks, that sort of working hard to make space and to run and to give options, and then pressure. So they're all work rate related stats. When you've got a team like his, which is, we've not been winning. We've lost, 5 in a row or something. But these are things that you can control as a group. And I really like the way that he focused on them and the way that he brought them to the group and said, this is what we can work on today. And so knowing that we're not going to beat Brisbane, but with this stuff we can still work on in our game, which is in our control. So I really liked his approach to that. And yeah, it'd be interesting to know what the pressure ended up being in the end, given it was so high in the first quarter, whether it did drop off. Maybe it stayed the same. Who knows?
I do love that pressure stat because I'm sure there's a way to calculate it, but it's kind of beyond us because we don't have access to all those auxiliary stats that, whoever it is, Champion Data or whatever looks after it, and they hold that monopoly into holding onto that information that all of us pundits can just talk to. But I really wish we knew how it came together because we'd really like to touch onto it. But as you said there, those particular stats that we do keep a track of that we can see with our eyes, all up, makes a big difference. And Scotty Gowans has always been about that. He's always been about put the pressure in because the next person will if you don't. And I really like that approach that he's kind of taken for this year.
Yeah.
I
do think on that a little bit though. I do have a little side note to the tackles. I think we do put the pressure on everywhere in the park, but one thing where we may be lacking that a little bit, tackles in our forward 50.
Yeah, definitely.
They had 21 and we had 7. So just trying to lock it in.
Considering how much they scored, that's nuts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had where was the thing? I've got it here, the inside 50 stats. So we had 21 inside 50s for the match total, and you said we made 5 tackles? Is that what you said? Was it the number?
7.
7, yeah. So 1 in 3 times we go inside 50. Yeah, and we didn't have it in there much, but we're still not tackling in there much either. Because what was their number? Their number was quite large when you compare it.
21. So again,
21
three
tackles
times
inside
as
50.
much. Which
and they
did
didn't have
have
60 inside 50s, which would have been the ratio of ours. So so they've tackled better inside 50.
Yeah, and they just they hunt for the ball and their speed around for the ball and then sharing it around. So the uncontested possessions, 184 to 107. So be the Debbie Downer in the group, but but
definitely, and a lot of it's
good
repeat
learning
tackles
curve.
too. Because a lot of the time Brisbane scored 11 goals in that game, so a lot of their inside 50s, they're probably not even making a tackle because they're kicking it into a mark or winning a contest or whatever and scoring a goal. So a lot of that is repeat stuff, which is locking it inside the 50, whereas our girls, the ball just got brought out so easily, so often when it did get inside 50.
Yeah, couldn't get numbers around it a lot of the time, I feel. Couldn't just get that quality of shutdown play either. Not necessarily using the ball outside either, not being able to kind of get something rolling. Anyway, there were some good things to be seen. There were some big plays. Jen, I might pass it over to you. What some of your better big plays of the day?
Yep. Already spoke about the 2 big tackles by Alexi. I thought actually one of those big tackles did lead to an almost goal for us. I'll call it that. It was pretty close. Lexi got Heslop in the fourth, took it down. Shepherd picked up a nice clean ground ball get, kicked it to Hurley. Hurley just got it on her boot, had a massive inside 50, and then just got rushed behind, just got out the back of Priv. So I thought that was one of our better plays, get it moving. And that was against the wind as well, so that was a massive kick from Hurley. Again, late in the fourth, there was a little stoppage on the wing. TK got it up, ground ball get, gave a nice kick down to the Red Ribbon of Death, who did a little candy sell, which I thought was pretty exciting for late in the fourth.
Red Ribbon Candy Death,
Did a little candy sell. She did a nice long clearing handball to Shepherd. I was actually pretty impressed with Shepherd this game for someone who hasn't played as much as the others. She kept popping up. Anyway, handball back to Lexi Hamilton, kick to Hurley again. Hurley's often part of our little chain. And then Red Ribbon. So all the names just jumping back and forth, following up double efforts, second efforts, third efforts, and then McCarthy kicked it into Lachlan, who almost got it in again, and TK got it behind. So we did have some linkage, but just I was like, come on, so close.
Just some of it's shown, but just not enough, I think. Steve-O, what about you? Some big plays on the day?
I mean, it wasn't a great day for highlights, really, when you only score one goal and 4 points. But there was just more moments throughout the game, and I'll just pick on one again. It's similar to one I talked about a couple of weeks ago. Just little bits which makes me feel, okay, we got done today, and we've had a pretty disappointing season on the ladder. But little bits that made me think that the future looks good. And it was another one of these ones where Hurley came out of traffic, looked up and saw Ham about 40 odd metres away, hit her up perfectly. Ham turns around and goes back, and we take the ball forward. And every time I see something like that, I think, okay, this year's been a bit of a mess, but we're looking all right, and we've still got these two elite youngsters who are just starting to come into their own in the comp, and it's really exciting to watch their journey and some of the others around them. So it wasn't a highlight as such, but just another one of these moments that makes me, think that we're not too bad.
Yeah, we've got some very talented youngins for sure, Hurley and Ham. I don't think there's a single person out there in Swans world that isn't excited about seeing them continually grow into their skin. So we're going to see how that ends up. One thing that I really enjoyed on the day was actually the commentators talking about BT, Tarrant's potential lining into the AA. So they were talking about that during the broadcast, and I was very excited. I was like, "Ooh, okay, let's see what they have to say to her." And they basically just said it should more or less be a given that she walks into at least in the larger squad. So, hey, we did say at the beginning of the year, didn't we? That I think we put our hand up and said she's got an AA jacket on its way, and so far so good. So hopefully that comes through with the goods. All right, now our coveted Bob medal, the equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal, where we give 3, 2, 1 points out to the best players every single week. And this week, we're going to see where we end up, because as we spoke about with Jen, we spoke about it earlier, Hurley's been taking a bit of a run at it lately. That was what Steve-O predicted earlier in the year. So there's been some dodgy things. Some money's been exchanged to try to take that down a couple of notches. But Steve-O, mate, I might start off with you. Who did you have for the 3 points for this week?
I had Hurley as the 3 points this week. What a surprise.
Of course.
So did I. Yeah. Jen, what about you?
I did. I had Hurley. As I said, just in 2 of those highlights just there, she's part of the linkage quite often. Steve-O, she was in one of your highlights. There's other passage where she got it forward, unfortunately. Yeah, just so many times that she keeps going and going and going. She's such a small player, but obviously has a big tank. So for our lovely stats people out there, 18 disposals, 10 kicks, 8 handballs, 3 marks, 4 tackles, 3 clearances, and 62 on the AFL fantasy points. So Hurley takes the 3. We're all in agreement.
In agreement, can't say anything more. I mean, do you want to start gloating now, Steve-O, or do you want to give it a little bit more time?
I'm okay. I'll wait till we get the final results. We've still got a game to go, and bloody Laura Gardner's come back, so that might mess plans up, because I reckon she was pretty high up the list. Luckily, I don't think she'll get votes today, but who knows what happens against West Coast.
Okay. Well, we do get to 2 points. So, Steve, I might start off with you, my friend. Where do you see your 2 points?
I liked Ella Heads. I thought this was one of her better games, actually, and she's really growing into herself and her role. I thought she played a great game.
I'm mixing it up this week. I did have Heads in my names, but I'm going off, diverging off the stats a little bit. I'm actually giving my 2 points to Smith. I think she was our goal kicker. I really was impressed with her in the first 2 quarters. She was often a linkage player, an outlet player for a couple of marks. And then for her to step in and fill in as the spare ruck for the rest of the game, I think she was one of the players who kept going all day. Made an impact player.
All right, so we have ourselves our first battle of the week. I'll just rattle off a couple of the stat lines there for the two. So Ella Heads with 19 touches, 13 of them kicks, 6 handballs, a mark, 4 tackles, 3 clearances, and 67 fantasy points. With Smith, 9 touches, 5 kicks, 4 handballs, 2 marks, a tackle, and 6 hitouts. Pretty hard to work with given the styles of play that they were and where they were on the ground. Of course, the back line were getting an absolute berating. So if I'm unfortunately going to play the position of the adjudicator, I'm going to swing towards Heads. I think in that case, Heads is going to take 2 points. I think, yeah, she was just super busy. We named her a couple of times already, and she kind of does deserve. And we've got to pick one. We can't be sitting on the fence. So let's go to the single point, the third player here. Jen, I'll pass over to you to pitch your player.
Pitch my player again. It's not a name that either of you guys have. It's someone a little bit, I think who gets a little bit overlooked. Brooke Lachlan. I think she, again, whenever she gets the ball, she usually does something good with it. Even in the game the week before, I did think I forgot to make a mention of her. You know, she does those clever things like taps it on over her head and gets the ball to someone's advantage or gets it to a point where they are marking it. And I thought she really she was one of the forwards who put a lot of pressure on. She did a lot of forward 50 tackles. Some of them, again, umpires were not paid. There definitely should have been one that was paid, and she was right in front of the sticks. That would have been a definite goal for us, but the whistle was away. I find when she's on, there's a bit more steadiness.
I got Beck Privatelli for my 1 vote. I just liked the way that she kept presenting. She presented forward. A lot of the time she was having to lead up and present like on half back because we just weren't getting the ball past centre, but she worked so hard and she took some solid marks and she always gave an option and a target. But having said that, I actually had Lachlan as my 4th one. I thought she was pretty close as well.
Well, I'm going to side with Jen, considering I did side with Steve-O on the 2 points. So 1 point to Lachlan. I agree with both of you. And I think throughout the year, she's proven herself to be like the 1%er queen. She just does little things consistently. She puts on a lot of pressure. I enjoy watching her play. And she's been doing this for a little while. Whenever she has gotten time on the ground, she seems to be a bit of an energizer bunny where she does not let up. So we're going to stick to 3 points for Hurley, 2 points for Heads, and 1 point for Lachlan. Any other notables from either of you? Jen, I might start with you then.
My honourable mention was Lexi Hamilton. I think as well, she stood up. She had to do the ruck work for most of the game. Those 2 tackles were so impressive. They really made me quite happy. And then she's often someone who gets that ball forward. She puts in a lot of effort across the park. And then BT, particularly that first quarter, all those intercept marks, those 2 had honourable mentions for me.
Yeah, I'd chuck Lucy McAvoy into that too, just because of the work rate throughout the whole game. She never dropped her head, and leading a group like this when you're getting belted is hard, and I think she did a good job of it.
Beautiful. Okay, the one Capitana out there, big boy McAvoy, always a classy player around the ground. Okay, now that takes us to the ladder implications. Which one of you want to pick that up? We'll talk that through where we are at the moment with 1 game to go.
Take it away, Steve-O.
All right. 15th, 62%, 62.9%. 2-8, we've lost 6 in a row now, which is disappointing, but there's a chance to pinch a win. And the last one against West Coast at home at Henson Park. Our last win now was against the Giants in week 4, which seems like a while ago, but it's only actually like a month ago. I was looking at the calendar because it's been so much of a compressed fixture. I was like, man, that feels like months, but it was like 5 weeks. So we've still got a bit of a memory of what it's like to get a win. I reckon the girls can get home. And I was looking at the ladder overall. We talked a couple of weeks about the massive gap between the top handful and the rest. And I went back and looked at previous AFLW seasons, and even looking at a couple of the men's seasons up to round 10, because that's the best sample you can get when everyone's played 10, because it's the only thing that's equivalent to what we've got here. And now we're at a point where the top 3 has got the exact same number of wins in the women's season this year after 10 rounds as the bottom 9. And that surprised me, but it wasn't massively different from the first season of having 18 teams, where the ledger was actually, there was a gap of 8. So it's actually a closer season in that sense than it was in the first season of having the full 18 teams. And then last year we had a much more even season. The gap was 20. So what I thought I'd look at instead, just like raw wins, was percentages. And if we look at the percentage on the ladder this year, the top 4 all have about 180+%. North Melbourne like 300, like something insane. Like it's like 300-ish. That's the top 4, all 180 plus. But all of the bottom 7 are under 70%. And last year, we only had 4 teams under 70%. And again, the top 4 was very high. So there is a big imbalance that we can see between the top handful and a good chunk of the rest of the comp. And it's something that the AFL definitely be looking at, you would imagine.
One thing I want to do point out as well, and maybe a bit of context given just that shortened season, given that we're playing 10 rounds, 11 games for the year. Like, let's be honest, where was Brisbane in the men's game after 10 rounds? I suggested they were still outside and heavily outside the top 8.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Right? So the game does deserve a lot more than we're giving it. So I know we harped on this before, but I think it's just telling that you don't get enough time for the girls to necessarily gel.
No, and to make up ground, like you have a bad start to the year, you lose 4 out of 5, you're pretty much out of the finals. You can't recover. Especially
where we are, where we lost some very important players to us along the season, and basically didn't have them for most of the season. So that's going to see. Jen, West Coast ahead of us for the last game of the season at the bleeding heart of Sydney, Henson Park.
Yes.
Yeah. What do we pay attention to with West Coast?
I think in that last game, Ella Roberts seemed to be racking up all the disposals. I think she had the highest disposals on ground and has been a bit of a disposal beast for the last for the season. We know about Jess Hosking. She's pretty damaging around the ground and is a player who will just go and go and go and hits pretty hard. Same with Emma Swanson. I think Emma Swanson's still the captain. She's another one of those players, big tank, goes hard, has many, many years of experience under their belt. So they're a couple of players we've got to keep an eye on. They're like us. They can't make finals. They're 4-6, so 4 wins, 6 losses. They were looking good in that first half of the season with 4-2, but have now lost their last 4. So I really hope that, they did have that 33-point loss to Geelong. Let's hope that, they're a bit bruised and battered as well, but they will come out wanting a win for the last game of the season, and I really hope that our girls feel exactly the same. They want a big win for the last game of their season. So I think they really need us to get down to Henson Park on Saturday, 3:05 p.m. Get down there, support the girls. I'm hoping we're all going to be there. Maybe not the finished lad over in the scrubland, but...
No, I won't make it. I don't think there's flights. Qantas has made it very hard to fly into Australia at the moment, this time of year.
Yeah. So come on, girls, let's get around them.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good crowd, you'd imagine. Last game of the season of all red and white. After this, we're done, of course. Henson Park always grabs a pretty good crowd. So the weather in Sydney has been absolutely immaculate. So I would love to see Henson Park packed themselves out. We're going to have a big collection of the rabble there for the O'Reilly crew that we sit with. Quite a few are going to go down with their kids and everything, so it's going to be a full day at the park. We do have a couple of notable changes, and I'd be interested to hear what you both have to say about the last person coming in. So Giselle Davies is out with an ankle, Maddie Collier out with the suspension. Who do you see coming in for either of those two girls?
Oh, it's tough with the height, with Giselle being out, so I imagine that Smith will actually go into that role. I mean, Berylson wasn't in that last game. Is she a fit and firing? Because she often brings a bit of spark, and she also, bit of speed. We've also got to think, everyone's trying to prove themselves now for the next season. There's going to be a lot of players wanting these positions, and this is a good opportunity to to stay on the list, I guess, for the next season as well, or those who may be on the cusp to fight for that last spot. So it's another reason I reckon we might have a good last game.
I'd like to see Berylson back in, but we don't know if she's fit, do we? Like, when she was left out the other week, I don't remember if it said that she was injured. I think she was just admitted, wasn't she? So
yeah, that's what I understood as well.
Yeah, I think she gives some spark. I really like her as a player. Like, okay, there are some stuff to work on. Like, she does tend to maybe take a few extra steps sometimes and maybe get run down and maybe some of the decisions. But she brings explosion. Like, she takes it on, and I really like the way that she does it. So hopefully she can get another run, assuming that she's fit to go.
Yeah. The only other person I can think of was Szigeti in that last game. I didn't remember really seeing Szigeti around the park.
No, Szigeti was admitted.
No, she didn't play. Yeah.
I felt that she played a fantastic game when we were reviewing it there, Jen. Yeah. So I'm a little bit confused why we can't see her back at it. Yeah,
we gave her the 1 point, so I don't know what was going on there.
And Sergeant Wilson was admitted last week too. I'm looking at the emergencies for last week. So the three that were emergencies was Hauseger, Sergeant Wilson, and Szigeti.
All right.
I personally would love to see Cooper get in there because I think she shows a lot of spark. I find her very, very exciting. Home game last of the season in a season where she's getting her debut. I would like to see her get one more crack at it personally.
Yeah. I guess actually on that point, if Maddie's out and she's been playing more of a defensive role than Sergeant Wilson, she's been a defender. So if we're doing like for like, that's probably the smart decision. But yeah, I mean, all in all, I think any of those girls could take that spot that you just said. It's going to be tough.
Yeah,
and it's a last audition for quite a few. It's probably the last time that they'll be on the list because they'll turn the list over at the end of the year. So
True. She's the hungriest out there. Of course, we do like to do some predictions. Any bold things coming out of your mouths here? Steve-O, start with you. Straight into a bold prediction.
I've got a prediction. I've also got a quiz question for the pair of you, which you can answer after you've done your predictions.
Okay.
I reckon we'll get up. By 5 points. It'll be tight, but I think we'll sneak it. And I reckon it'll be a comfortable 5 points. I think we'll be up by like 2 or 3 goals, and then probably pinch a couple late, but we'll hold on. So it's a very precise prediction. My quiz question though is the Eagles who are playing. They were in it against Geelong until half time last week, and then they got rolled over in the second half. But Maloney kicked 6 goals, which was effectively the margin in the end. They won by 33 points. But my quiz question is, Maloney's 6 goals was only the equal second best ever scored in AFLW. Who has the highest ever goals in a single game?
Lachlan.
Yeah, that's right.
Boom.
Yeah.
How many?
Extra point if you can say goals and behinds.
Oh, shivers.
Kick on the day.
9 goals or something insane like that?
I think it was 7. I'm going to go 7-3 when she was playing for the Bulldogs.
Yes, Jen. Very good.
Wow, well done,
Is
Jen.
Nailed it. Yeah,
holy shivers. There you go. At the kennel. Was it at the kennel as well? Anyway, there you go.
Wow, well done.
Very good.
Good call. All right, so yeah, that was no maths needed, but general tricky freaking stats. Jen's your girl. All right, bold prediction, Jen. What do you think?
I'm going to go for a win as well. I want a bigger margin. Swans by 17. Obviously, we spoke about this last week, Chris. Even though our ladder position, I've still got my own little ladder game going on, us against Giants. So they've got a higher percentage than us after that Lions game. So we need the win, because if they get the win, then we're below. So come on, girls. bring that home. I forgot my point. There was something else I was going to say to you, but over to you. What's your prediction?
Okay. I like what Jen's saying. Yep, I'm going to say 24 points to wrap up 2024. I really would love to see the girls get up that four goals. I think they deserve it. I know that the girls are hurting. The inside word is the girls are hurting in that locker room. I know Gowan's just really trying to sharpen them up, trying to make them a little bit more professional, keeping them accountable of what happens on the football field. So I would love for them for some of that effort and all those close games that they've lost, finally get out there and put a screamer out there for the home crowd, red and white. Any other points one last thing before we go away?
I'd like to talk about the Red Ribbon crew or the Red Ribbon Brigade.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever you want to call them. Because we've talked a lot about the Red Ribbon of Death, Cynthia Hamilton, and it seems like she's got some more into her posse now. So I noticed quite a few Red Ribbons on the weekend. So Sophia Hurley had one, Paige Shepherd had one, Ella Heads had one, and Lisa Stain is like a half member of the club. She's got a red ribbon and a white ribbon. So watch out for more red ribbons on the field in the next week.
We've got to give them a name, right? Like a collective name for them.
I like the Red Ribbon Brigade. That's pretty good.
Red Ribbon Brigade.
Yeah.
Yep, the brigade. All right, we can go with something like that. We'll make some shirts up. We'll get that going. Some merch.
Oh yes, please.
Just flog the living daylights out of it like some other people do. We'll get stuck into a bit of that.
Yeah.
Jen, what about you?
I just hope that they go out and they play with a bit of freedom. Like, it's the last game of the season. Just go for it. These last couple of games, those pokey kicks have just been giving me the heebie-jeebies, will be PC. But yeah, just go for it. Just have some fun. Last one, go out with a flurry. Trust each other, back each other. Just, go for some banana kicks. Have a left-footed boot at the goal. Just go for it. No suspensions, obviously. Don't go too far over the line. But yeah, just a win. Come on.
Put on a show, Jen, you reckon? Put on a show in front of the big crowd. Yeah, I love it.
Yep.
Beautiful. All right, well, that does bring us to the end of the episode. If you've liked what we've done, we might have done something good, right? Give us a like, give us a follow, jump into social media, do whatever. And if you see us at Henson Park, come and say hello. Always fantastic to talk to some other Swans fans. If you're there in Finland, you see Steve-O, walk away quickly. Otherwise, we'll see you at Henson Park. Until then, up the bloods and can you Swannies!